Exodus 32, verses 1 through 14. Listen for God's word. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered around Aaron and said to him, "Come, make gods for us, who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." Aaron said to them, "Take off the gold rings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off the gold rings from their ears and brought them to Aaron. He took these from them, formed them in a mold, and cast an image of a calf. And they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made a proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a festival to the Lord." They rose early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to revel. The Lord said to Moses, "Go down at once. Your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt, have acted perversely. They have been quick to turn aside from the way that I commanded them. They have cast for themselves an image of a calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt.' The Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, how stiff-necked they are. Now let me alone, so that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, and of you I will make a great nation.' But Moses implored the Lord, his God, and said, 'O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he brought them out, to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath. Change your mind and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, how you swore to them by your own self, saying to them, 'I will multiply your descendants like the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever.' And the Lord changed his mind about the disaster that he had planned to bring on his people." And now we'll turn to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 20. Verses 24 through 28. When the 10 other disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. But Jesus called them together and said, "You know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Friends, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. A young woman wanted to go to college, but her heart sank when she read the question on the application that asked, "Are you a leader?" Being both honest and conscientious, she simply wrote, "No," and returned the application expecting the worst. To her surprise, she received this letter from the college. "Dear applicant, a study of the application forms reveals that this year our college will have 1,452 new leaders, We are accepting you because we feel it is an imperative that they have at least one follower. Webster's dictionary defines leader as a person who has commanding authority or influence. All of us, if we were given a little time to think about it, could come up with a list of leaders that we admire and leaders that we despise. Leaders who have inspired us and leaders who disgust us. We might have a variety of different reasons for classifying leaders the way that we do, but one question that we'll raise up this morning can bring a leader's motives into focus more than any other. And it can shine light on the things that we love or loathe in those charged with leading us. The question, who do leaders follow? There were 128 runners in the field for the cross-country race at the 1993 NCAA Division II Track and Field Championships. As they set out on their 6.2-mile run, they were following a course that had been marked for them by the race officials. Toward the end of the course, one of the runners in the middle of the group realized that something was wrong. Mike Del Cavo of Western State College in Colorado saw that the main pack had missed the turn. After the race, he told an interviewer, "I was waving for them to follow me and yelling, 'This is the right way.'" Del Cavo was right, but only 5 other runners followed him. The rest continued on their shortcut, which allowed them to run a shorter distance and finish the race sooner. In a widely criticized decision, race officials allowed the abbreviated route to stand as the official course. And Del Cavo officially finished 123rd. All 128 runners arrived at the race with the same purpose: to run the best possible race that they could run. But somewhere along the way, each of the runners shifted their focus from running their best race to keeping up with the person in front of them. Because they became more focused on the other runners, they completely missed the fact that they were no longer on the course designated for their race. Even though the race officials gave in to the pressure of the crowd and validated the results of the botched race, only 6 runners stayed on the right path. Mike Del Cavo didn't win the race. Hardly anybody would hear his old college cross-country story and consider him someone who had commanding authority or influence. But when Mike decided not just to go along with the mistakes everyone else was making, but to do what was right, even when the right path essentially made him a loser, Mike became a leader. After the Israelite people had heard the terrifying voice of God, they had listened to the 10 words God had for them, watched the lightning flash and the smoke gather on top of the mountain, listened to the thunder crash and the trumpets blare, and they cried out, "Moses, don't ever let God speak to us again. You listen to what he has to say and then break it to us easy." After all that, Moses climbed the mountain to meet with God. While he's up there, the people get restless. So they gather around Aaron, hungry for guidance and reassurance. The people are scared and desperate. In their estimation, the problem before them, despite numerous reminders to the contrary, is that they are now abandoned in the wilderness and left to die. So they come to Aaron suggesting the simplest solution they can dream up. Make for us a God that we can keep our eyes on. Or better yet, that we can keep our hands on so we can force it to stay with us. This could have been Aaron's moment. This could have been the crisis that provided Aaron the opportunity to answer the question for himself in Moses' absence. When the people pressured Aaron to manufacture false hope, he could have reminded them of the words that they had heard from the very mouth of God. He could have called them out for their impatience and their short memory of all that the one true God had done for them. He could have announced before the people that his faith and his trust is in the God who led them out from the bondage of slavery. So he would wait for the guidance of the Lord. He could have. Instead, Aaron made clear that in this moment, he would follow popular opinion. He showed them that he follows the pressures of the fear of the unknown. He follows the prospect of being a hero for giving the people what they wanted. We don't know how much time it took Aaron to deliberate on the people's request. But the story leads us to believe that he immediately told them to bring him all the gold jewelry that they were wearing. The gold jewelry, perhaps, that they had taken from the Egyptians when they were leaving town. Gold jewelry that could have possibly served as a reminder of God's deliverance. He gathered their rings and their earrings and their necklaces and cast them in the image of a calf. Did the people ask for a calf statue? Did they come to Aaron demanding that their jewelry be used? Or did Aaron listen to their legitimate concerns and their faulty understanding and follow his own selfishness to provide a solution? The people did ask Aaron to make for them a new god. But their rationale explains what it is that they were more deeply asking. They said, as for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what's become of him. Did Aaron not know that it was God and not Moses who delivered the people out of the land of Egypt? Had Aaron not experienced that God can be trusted and that God does not always work as fast as we might hope? In this moment, for Aaron, following God would have looked like acknowledging the people's anxiety. It would have looked like reminding them of the places that they were misremembering the past. It would have looked like demonstrating faith in the midst of uncertainty. We know that Aaron was not a bad guy. He actually did a lot of amazing things for the Lord. But Aaron reminds us that leaders must constantly decide who it is they will follow, lest they find themselves losing focus on the path that they've been called to travel. The followers of Jesus knew that a day would come when God would send a Messiah to redeem the nation of Israel. And they believed that that day was finally here. At last, Jesus had come to set the record straight, to rise up against the powers that had oppressed them for so long. Some of his followers were almost giddy, awaiting the cue to rise up with force and to claim their rightful place as God's chosen people. If Jesus had decided to follow popular opinion, he might have found a way to topple the Roman government. If he had decided to follow the pressures of the fear of the unknown, he might have overpowered those who came to arrest him and escaped the pain of the cross. If he had followed the prospect of being a hero for giving the people what they want, his resurrection would have been a spectacle performed in front of a sold-out arena, rather than a moment discovered quietly by a group of women. Christ Jesus walked the earth and invited those he came into contact with to follow me. And he never wavered in his pursuit of following the will of God. With every opportunity to follow the pressures of public acceptance, unfathomable power, comfortable and lavish living, Christ chose to follow God his Father at every turn. Not every person considers themselves a leader. We may not work in management, and we may have never held public office. But every one of us has been called to run with perseverance the race that is set before us. We may not feel like we're good enough to run in first place, but sometimes the best leader on the course is the one who faithfully follows the path that is set before them. A good leader is not defined by how many followers they may have. A good leader is the one who trusts the guidance of the one that they follow, even if they can't see him.